Hello, my name is David, and I am in fact a lizard. I've been a lizard this whole time. On September 14th, I released my animated short film Don't Feed the Freaks. It's the fourth in my Autodale series. Now, I promised 3 new Autodale short films, rounding the total number of the series to 5. Being Pretty, No Monsters, Children's Toys, Don't Feed the Freaks, and blank. I'm gonna have to stop here at 4 for now. The reason for this is that I originally had 3 new ideas, but I kind of rolled the 4th and 5th short into one here. I simply do not have a good idea for the 5th animated short anymore. I'm pretty much 100% certain I will return to this series when I feel I have a decent story to tell again though. It just might take a while. Most of you know this story, but the Autodale series started with Being Pretty, and Being Pretty started with this illustration I did. It's called Don't Feed the Freaks, and it's the origin of all of this. This is where I'll have to start. This drawing was supposed to convey that only through the innocent eyes of a child could a monster in a gutter be seen as something to be empathised with. The world, and even the viewer of the illustration, sees a monster, but the girl sees a person. This was the driving force behind the themes of the short. There is so much to cover about the making of this short, from the art to the amount of research I did to what the story means to me, so much so that I'm gonna have to separate this into 2 videos. One normal making of, this video, and another video focusing on the freaks and their design and research. That'll come next week. As you can imagine, considering that this short was 2 ideas smushed into one, that the story changed a whole lot during production. This short took a very long time to write. I've been working on this thing since before Children's Toys. It went through tons of different iterations. For example, originally it was about a woman and a little girl travelling the wastes, but that was quickly scrapped after I decided on a story more focused on introspection and isolation. Also, I realised that all of my Autodale shorts that have a lead character are female-led, so I felt a male-led short was probably long overdue. This short went through more thematic and story changes during the writing stage than any of my other short films, specifically with the tone. I kept flip-flopping between a bleakness like the Roader Last of Us to an uplifting coming-of-age tone. I flip-flopped all the way through the editing process too, not just the writing process. I just kept changing the music, changing the tone, changing the voice acting. It was just flipping and flopping all over the shopping. In the end, I feel it became a melancholy mix of the 2. This animation was a culmination of so much work and scattered ideas over the past year and a half or so. Not only does this short introduce the freaks, which have been part of the series from the very beginning but have also never actually properly appeared in the shorts whatsoever, it also features so many scrapped ideas, bits and pieces I've always wanted to share but never could. You might remember in another video that I mentioned I had a scrapped idea for a short featuring this overgrown handyman sculpture I made. And you also might have seen this drawing I created depicting the fall or perhaps escape of the matriarch. And of course the Don't Feed the Freaks painting too. These are all ideas I had but could never share, pieces of concept art that never really became anything. There was never really a complete story to any of them. Just little fun, cool ideas and themes, and this short is the collection and culmination of all of it. A lot of my old artwork even appears in the short. Things like the handyman sculpture, the Don't Feed the Freaks painting, this drawing, and a page of the Exceptional Girl storybook, to name a few. On top of concept art reference, I tried to visit abandoned places in my area too. We ultimately found 3. The first of which was an abandoned farming estate that my brother and I stumbled upon in our adventures. We also investigated some abandoned railway tunnels. which ultimately didn't really amount to anything for the shore, but it was still cool though.
Oh god, he's a fool! He's a fool! Oh. It looks really dumb.
Sir, finishing the fight.
And finally, a friend and I visited an abandoned and rotting mental hospital. I'd been to the hospital before for my animated short redone, but I felt it was totally worth another visit. This place definitely turned out to be the most influential of all the places I visited, as you can probably see. I based a lot of the decrepit and rotting architecture in the short on images I captured here. Broken windows, the rubble, and the overgrown nature of it all totally influenced a lot of the look of this short film. There are a lot of little subtle references to this place scattered throughout the short, but my favourite by far is this hallway. The graffiti, the erase tag, and the hallway itself I completely copied for this shot here. I also took trips to an aquarium and some museums for freak reference, but again, that'll be covered in part 2. With all of the concept art finished and research done, I finally got to start working on the short. This is my best looking short film. I think it looks really good, but that came at a price. There's so much surrealist imagery and detail in all of these backdrops that all had to be drawn from scratch. This was hard for my little lizard hands. One day I'd be drawing a black hole of whale skeletons, next I'd be drawing a robot being dragged down by zombies, then half a giant fleeing cyborg. It was fun as hell to really let my imagination go wild, but it was an absolute nightmare to draw. None were worse than the journal panning shots though. I love this stuff, and it's kind of an indirect reference to the very sketchbooks I make for these short films. But the amount of details I had to cram into this journal was no fun. Now for the story of the short. I think this is the segment people enjoy the most, so I'm going to try and make it meaty. If you want to take this story literally, you can. There are multiple towns and civilizations, just like Autodale, each with a monarch, a government, and they've all fallen. There are tons of towns, each different in their own subtle ways, with a quirk or a catchphrase, pretty, glamorous, so on. Every single one of them is doomed to fall and they're all long dead. Except one. Autodale. It's a story about a boy, the Traveller. His town fell when he was young and he is trying to find the last remaining town, Autodale. A mythical place of safety and kindness hidden somewhere within the Wasteland. The last remnant of civilization where all other civilizations and their rulers have fallen. Freaks lurk in the wastes, in his eyes they're unpredictable and dangerous. He sees them as monsters and is extremely scared of them, avoids them at all costs. Eventually he is confronted by a freak, but instead of attacking, it helps him. He realises he might have been wrong about the freaks and they're not much different from him. There's more to learn about them, more to himself, more to learn about the wastes he's leaving behind for an impossible haven. He begins to question his goal and his perception of the world until he finally does stumble upon the impossible haven, Autodale. But the inhabitants of Autodale can't help but see him as one of the untrustworthy monsters he so wrongly assumed of the freaks. You can either accept that the freaks are real and they are monsters, just not necessarily always bad monsters, and he was one of them all along, which makes enough sense. Or, and this is more of what I was getting at, and I guess you could take this entirely metaphorically with the same result, that freaks are just normal people. They're just outsiders and strangers, and through the traveller's eyes, strangers are unpredictable and scary. But they're still people, and people can be mean, and also people can be nice. He can't help but empathise with them on some level. He is one of them. He's looking for friends, other people, and can't realise that they're all around him. Exactly like the freaks, he's just another lonely, homeless person wandering the wastes looking for purpose. I deliberately kept the story, themes and meaning of this short quite open-ended. If you want to see a story about xenophobia, you can. If you want to see a story about social pressures, you can. If you want to see a smaller story about one man being overly introverted, scared of strangers, you totally can as well. Because it's all there, and it's all deliberate. Personally though, I crafted the events of this story to mirror an event in my real life. It's mostly subliminal in the short, but it's definitely there, and a handful of you in the comments seem to have caught on to it. This is the story of my teenage years, just with added monsters, giant cyborgs and floating snails. Let me explain. I dropped out of school at 11. I was being bullied, I lost a lot of weight, got quite sick, and all of my hair fell out. Felt like a freak. From the ages of 11 through 18 I was homeschooled. I was a shut-in, I never left the house. I spent all of my teenage years without a social life or friends, alone at home. I was extremely lonely. Those years are extremely important years for social and mental development, where you learn about yourself and other people. I had none of that and I turned into a right antisocial little feller. My family were great though, don't get me wrong. I love them all, and it's because of my homeschooling that my little brother became my best friend. Yeah, this guy. I was still lonely as hell though, and had no real idea of what the world even looked like. This is teenage me. The traveller's even supposed to look how I used to look. He's 15 to 18 years old, skinny, with a backpack and a hat covering his baldness. The story beats of this short are surreal exaggerations of the feelings I remember feeling. I remember being 18, finally going outside after realising there was nothing left at home anymore, and the world wasn't what I expected. It was strange and unexplainable. I wanted nothing more than a place or environment full of nice people who would accept me. Friends, like I see in the movies. All I saw around me were strangers, scary and unpredictable people. I saw freaks, and they likely also saw a freak in me. I was scared of them and avoided them at all costs. Always looking for friends but not seeing any. Of course, eventually I'm confronted with a stranger, and they're not that bad. In fact, they're helpful, and we're not very different. After this, I begin to question my search for this impossible goal. The real life story goes that I finally realise everyone around me is just like me. The people I've been looking for are everywhere. Every single human being is a stranger, a simultaneously kind and cruel human being. We're all homeless and we're all looking for something to do and somewhere to be. The short ends slightly differently, with the what if scenario if I finally found that mythical gang of friends and family to accept me, and the realisation that after 7+ years of lonely introspection, they wouldn't have seen me as anything more than the freaks I saw everybody else as. This might seem like a stretch to view this story in this way, but it was the way I wrote it from the very beginning. A few of you in the comments even compared this short to teenage life, high school and growing up, and you're all right. I'm 22 now, and I'm better. I was just an angsty, lonely kid, and I'm not that anymore. I'm not going to pretend I'm some wise man now who has everything figured out, though. Far from it. I'm constantly reevaluating everything I think I know. I'm only 22, after all. People grow and change, and it's through experiences like this in which it happens. This is my favourite of my films. I love this thing. The story is really personal and I really hope you guys enjoyed it too. One last thing though. I feel I should really come clean with you guys about something. I'm not actually a lizard. I am in fact a DVD copy of Spider-Man 2.